Hello, Roastbrief community. I have a very special guest today, AK, the founder of Socialize, and now, is it the CEO of We Are Social Middle East?
That is right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Now, AK, this year is a special year for you because this is your 10th Cannes.
It is my 10th can. This
Right.
is true. Yes.
So
Yes.
I wish we could have like the whole afternoon to talk about
How can has changed and how it looks like now, but you
and
know.
all the narratives that you've
Yes,
heard, right?
yes,
It's like,
yes.
what were people worried about, a decade ago, and where are they now?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Our community is predominantly Hispanic, based in
Okay.
North America,
Okay.
and Roastbrief has a huge community in Latin America.
Okay.
And I know that this year there is a special brand that we might want to be able to talk about. And I know that you've been a judge at Cannes before, and this year you're part of the AD&D. Tell us a little bit about your 10th Cannes and why it's special this time round.
I think this can is special for a few reasons. Yes, it is my 10th can, but it is also I come here at a time when our agency's just turned 15. We're going so 15 years is such a long run. I had an account executive who walked up to me right after we did this presentation, and he said, "Hey, can you look at that person in the corner?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "He's our intern. He was born around the time that you had the idea for Socialize." Just to put it into perspective, 15
awesome.
years is a long time, but it's also 7 years since we joined forces with We Are Social. So it's a 10th can and 7-year anniversary and 15th year of the business all happening in the same week. So this week almost feels like sacred and surreal just because of all of that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be here and kind of take stock of what the industry has got into and also reflect on what an interesting space we're in. We're in a crossroads with everything that's happening with AI, but then equally you're seeing this resurgence of creators and influencers, and that's the campaign we ended up talking about, which brought us back to DNAD. DNAD, in the Middle East at least, is known as the Cult Award. So I was delighted when I got an invitation to be on the inaugural jury for the Creator Content Award. DNAD has always stood for craft and creative excellence. So for them to treat creators seriously, like Cannes started doing about 5 years ago when they introduced social influencer, I thought that was meaningful, and I loved being a part of that. I liked and loved being a part of that, inaugural jury. It was a beautiful jury. It was a jury that was hand selected, but we all got along beautifully. That meant that the conversations were not surface level. We were able to go deeper, so we really queried a lot of things. We asked a lot of questions. We took the responsibility of awarding the yellow pencil, very seriously, and we all thought pretty much the same thing about what should win, right? It's work where the creator is not just a tag along, or the influencer is a tag along, but it's something that couldn't have existed without the creator influencer. It was work that took things outside of the feed and into the real world and made it real. It was work that was simple and made the creative leaders in the room go, "I wish I'd thought of that." It was all of that, but there was one case that was probably the most debated, and the one that I mentioned I may.
And we'll start unpacking that.
Yeah.
For the audience that maybe not too familiar with DNAD, can you tell us a little bit about these awards? You mentioned the yellow pencil.
Yes.
Is that what everybody kind of aims to be awarded
Yes.
with? But are there other categories and other awards that come with it?
Yes, so DNAD, they've got various categories. They started off primarily as a design, print ad award based out of London. They've existed for many years. It's very hard to get a pencil. You have a short list, which is just the outline of a pencil. You then have the wood pencil, and then you have the graphite pencil, and then you have the yellow pencil, which is like the can gold. There is one black pencil, which is the Grand Prix, but that doesn't get awarded in every category, so that's not a thing. But where we got to with our category is there came a time in the judging process where we found ourselves looking down the barrel of a possibility where there was no yellow pencil for our category. First time the creator category gets announced, and we as a jury don't award a yellow pencil. I thought that was it was interesting we got there. So it was full of drama, the jury room for 3 days, but God, we enjoyed it.
So now tell us this year, what is the the amount of time that you have to invest in being part of that jury. Can you tell us a little bit about the demands of a judge nowadays?
Good question. Good question. Good question, because years back when I was first asked about Cannes, about being a jury at Cannes, my reaction was, oh gosh, please don't put me in a windowless room for 3 days. I'd
Yeah,
much rather be
that's what
having
it's like,
rosé
right?
at the process. I just want to say, I don't know how much people appreciate this, but being jury is hard work. You're investing time pre-awards, going through all of the cases and shortlisting them. You need to know the cases, because when you end up in person at 8 a.m. sitting with the rest of some, real captains of industry from around the world, you need to be able to talk about the cases. You then, spend the first day sort of reducing the cases down. Everyone fights for the case they think should be
Yeah.
in. You come up with a short list. You spend the second day taking the short list down to a few pencils. Then you spend the third day coming back in, looking at, the few that are getting a pencil is the same way that works for Cannes, and then decide which ones you're going to award the top pencil, the yellow pencil and graphite pencil. So it's a multi-day process. It starts at 8. It's meant to end at 6. Many people will tell you horror stories about horror
the rosé
stories.
is done by then, right?
Yeah, horror stories about Cannes jury members staying in that room till 2 a.m. out of choice. And if that doesn't speak to the passion and the reverence that jury brings to the selection, so that happens at Cannes.
Yeah.
Our jury room was done because we had a shorter category at DN80 this year. We were done, but the last day, we would have stayed in that room till we needed to, till that last vote happened, because we wanted to be very sure about what we awarded. But it was such a meaningful discussion, and it made me sort of think that our industry needs to start paying attention to something perhaps a little bit deeper than the work and AI and all of the things we've discussed, but perhaps around ethics and our values and our principles as an industry, which, ethics was a word that you mentioned, and I said, I don't know about where that's relevance. But now as I think back, the discussion we had at the DNAD around this, it was a Colombian case, actually. So it was a case from Latin America, it was a Colombian case, and it was about this Colombian case, and it made me rethink our values as an industry.
Yes, it's something that I did hear a lot yesterday in some of the talks, is put in, ethics before performance or efficiency. But yeah, can you tell us a little bit about, this particular case? Because I think for our audience, it's going to really resonate, because they probably, know the brand, if we're allowed to disclose that.
Yes, because it's well, we've gone so far to say it won the yellow pencils. Everyone knew what case won the yellow pen. I hope what case won the yellow pencil for DN80's first ever creator content category, and it was a case called the Blurred Unboxing. A Blurred Unboxing that involved Ramos. I don't know if you know, Ramos is a popular snack brand in Colombia. It involved Pugliato, who is Colombia's, one of Colombia's top influencer.
Yeah.
And it involved a controversy, between all of that and a controversy. So the case, just to tell you a little bit about how the case plays out. So Pugliato is a top, TikToker. He likes jerseys, I think. All of this is in Colombian, so some of it, we've used AI to translate it. So
oh, there you go. I mean, and now you can understand every word.
Exactly.
Right?
So he loves jerseys, and he likes to do these unboxing videos where he takes out jerseys. And he's doing this one unboxing video talking about all of these great jerseys that he's recently bought. And he's doing that out of this Ramo box. So maybe there must have been a Ramo box, lying around, because it's a popular snack brand. And when he puts up this video, he blurs out the Ramo box. Now, the brand team responds on that video and says, hey man, Pugliato, why translating? So attitude all mine. Hey man, Pugliato, why did you blur out our box?
Yeah.
And he responds back saying, go to hell.
Of course. You're not going to get my free publicity.
Yeah, he's
right?
like, exactly, you're not going to get my free publicity. Now, the brand takes that, I think it shows a lot of courage for a brand. It takes that blurred logo and decides to blur itself. It decides to, have a sense of humor about the whole thing. And it decides that after they get that comment, within 24 hours of that comment, they send over a blurred box to Pugliato's house. They blurred out the logo themselves, and inside the box are all of the Ramos snacks, all blurred out, with a jersey with a blurred logo, and they send it to him. And he's I think, in the video with his girlfriend, he's opening the box and he's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, these crazy, whatever. And his girlfriend comes in and he's like, look at what they've sent me. So that video also then immediately picks up, and Rama then comments saying, well, this box is up for sale, who wants it? And then overnight, a joke, a creator saying, I'm blurring out the logo, and the brand having the courage to blur themselves, send this box, becomes another viral moment. And after that, the box, I believe, is sold on platforms and now can be found for resale on Melly, which is an e-commerce platform.
Unbelievable.
Mercado Libre.
La Mercado Libre, yes.
Yes, so it can be found, the blurred box of Ramos, for sale. So this whole thing is incredible. And, we say that social or culture moves at the speed of social. So to see a brand and marketing team pick up on a conversation so quickly, act on it, have a sense of humor, send this back, and for it to be another moment, simple, beautiful, gives me goosebumps saying it. It should.
What does it take? You've been owner of an agency for over a decade. How good do they have to be?
That's it.
What's the craft that requires?
That's it. Almost couldn't believe it. 24 hours, and it really speaks to where our industry is going and the need for, it doesn't just have to be great. It needs to be fast, and it needs to be cheap, and you need to do.
It needs to be fun, and it's humorous, which is the conclusion that Cannes ended up in 2024. Is like, let's go back to humor. And you can see some of these things being playing out now, right?
And look where we are. I don't know if we've got into humor. I don't think people have a sense of humor about AI, but that's a it's a different conversation.
We're going to move there in a second.
Different conversations. Coming back to this case, in some ways, I still get goosebumps talking about it because it's hard to have that good of a relationship with the brand, where the brand, and have a brand that has the courage, allows the agency to move on this. Two, to do it within 24 hours. So it is a labor of love. There's no contract, there's no brief. There's no, here's an estimate for this work. It's a labor of love. So that should be awarded. But then there was a question that was raised in the room, and then everything just came to a standstill. And then it was a debate for almost half a day. And the question was, should we be awarding work, yellow pencil, no less, to work where the influencer was not paid, was not compensated? Is this what we want to stand for as an agency? Could this not have been more? Could this not have been a Ramo and Pugliato box together? Maybe a collab, something else, something that is a new model of what fair creative practice looks like. And this is coming from, and the good thing about this D&AD jury was that in that jury room, you didn't just have agency owners and creative leaders and business leaders. You had people who represented influencers, talent managers. You had people who represented influencer platforms. So it's a very diverse jury, not just
very well balanced.
Very well balanced. So it made all of us stop, and then someone else ended up like, what's happening with brands and their relationship with creators? They need to respect creators and respect, the space. And no other time is this more important a conversation to have than now, because creators are more than just personality. Influencers are more than just personalities. They're collectives, they're ecosystems. They can be the entire, brand partnership for the brand. So that should be compensated. And I guess this debate went on for a while. In the end, we decided that together, thankfully, the first time we voted,
unanimously.
So we voted, and the results went up, and there was no yellow pencil. And then some of us looked at the other part of the room and we're like, no, come on, let's keep discussing this. Come on, we have to award a yellow pencil. So we discussed, and finally I'm getting goosebumps. The last vote went up, because there was only one last time to vote. So if there was people who were still not convinced, done, right? So last vote went up, and one of the things I said, and I don't know whether this made a big difference, there were lots of things people said, but I said, doesn't giving it the yellow pencil allow us to have this conversation? So, thank you for bringing it up, because it's conversations like this where we can talk about a yellow pencil, talk about that debate and say, should our industry, be thinking differently around how we work with influencers, that perhaps unplanned virality should be rewarded with something, a contract, a cut, a collab, something. And maybe, this could be an opportunity for us to have a code of creative credit, a code of creative credit.
It certainly was. And the efficiency to turn, that merchandise around. Who gets a football shirt printed in 24 hours? Who can go to a factory and say, can you can you do new packaging
Yes,
for
yes,
certain
yes,
confectionaries?
yes, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
what a hell of an execution.
Exactly, and that's why it won. It should have won. It was fantastic work. But I thought it was so interesting that we had that debate, and it left me thinking that we should also think about how we engage with influencers. We need to think about fair compensation. Spontaneity should not be an excuse for inequity, in some ways. And brands need to start taking influencers seriously as bigger parts of the partnership. And in the end, the thing that was also interesting is the fact that it was AI. And tomorrow in the future, we might have AI influencers. But AI helped us stay on point. It helped us understand the campaign, understand Pugliato, understand conversation. It kept
Yes.
us accountable. So in a funny way, the thing that we're fighting against, in some ways, kept us accountable. But our industry is at a crossroads. This can shows it. Work like this tells us that we need to start thinking about our principles.
Oh, what a fantastic!
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Most welcome.
The agency involved, I think, is worth mentioning, right?
The agency involved, gosh, I would love to have a conversation with them, find out the inner workings of this case study. But it was Juju.
Juju, we know
Yes.
them.
It
Yes.
was also great to award an independent agency,
Yeah.
out of Colombia. I mean, Latin America obviously always does well in awards, but independent agency, yeah, good on them. Well
Yeah,
done
well done,
on the yellow
Juju.
pencil.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Juju, and I know that they've been expanding, so I think a case like this is only going to help them to win some of the other loved brands in Latin America. A lot of sugary brands there. Everybody loves their sugar,
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with indulging now and again.
FMCG brands, can't love them, can't hate them. It's how it is. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Now, I know that you do have a special focus on AI, and I think as part of new CEO for Middle East for We Are Social, that's probably going to be quite high on your agenda. It's something I like to talk a lot about with CEOs, about their ethics and their playbook, how they're going to be integrating it without being left behind and keeping all this IP, intellectual property, and so forth. The human element. Can you tell us a little bit about your workings and, without giving away your strategy, where are you leaning to?
It's not it's not giving away a strategy, because we're all figuring it out.
Okay.
So when you say, as a CEO of Middle East We're Social, it's high on my agenda, it's high on every CEO's agenda, or it should be. AI is transformational. It's like the internet. It's happening and it's here. So, ethics, my ethics and principles around it, I guess, separate. Maybe I can talk a little bit about the strategy, about where we've ended up and what my hope and dream for the industry,
Yes,
that
please.
I love and have been in for 15 years, is, if you think about strategy with AI, there's a spectrum of AI, which is efficiency and creativity, the way I look at it. AI can be used to bring efficiency into what we do. So for example, our researchers are spending less time researching, more time coming up with the insights. Our account teams are spending less time putting a presentation together and more time hopefully going for spicy margaritas with clients. So my view of the efficiency is, this is what it brings, is it takes some of the dread work away. Agencies can use AI so that our teams have more time, perhaps not to cut down teams, because we're a people business, right? So there are companies that have a strategy of, because things have become more efficient, because I can do translations quicker, I can do copywriting quicker, I need lesser people. That's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it is, I keep my best people. The other way to think about it is, or I invest more in people, because ultimately now my people are happier. They've got lesser to do. That means they're bringing more of their beautiful, amazing selves into creating award-winning work, which needs a human, that human suffering and that human creativity to come out.
Of course.
Or they're spending more time with people, and we're a relationship-built business. If you look at Cannes, it's all about the relationships. We're here sharing a little bit of ourselves with someone else.
Right. Could have done it on Zoom, right?
Couldn't have done it on Zoom. So that's one part of it, efficiency. The creativity part of it is, AI can help us bring all these new, interesting, wonderful things that we hadn't even imagined into the world. And the only people who can do that, really, are the people we call our creatives, right? Our creatives are the creatives. I would love to see them get familiar with the tools faster than what I see happening. I see a lot of fear and anxiety around AI. There's a little bit of this death by astonishment, because everyone's talking about it and you're going to lose your job. People with AI will take your job, or people with AI will take the job of people not with AI. All of this headlines, bumper stickers. So everyone is shell-shocked. They're scared. And you know what people do when they're scared? Is they don't have fun. So you talked about fun. You talked about humor. but no one's having fun. No one's having a laugh. And when they're not doing that, they're not creating beautiful things. And I would hate to see that happen to our industry and everyone shrivel.
Yeah.
So I don't know, my principles and values are that as a leader, I hope every opportunity I get to try and, as honest as I can be, tell people, it's not, please don't exist in this place of fear. We invested in you. We want you to be here. We want to grow together. You grow, we grow. When you start, leveraging this technology, but from a space of exploration and curiosity, not from a place of, I need to do this as a task. You don't. It's like the internet. Remember how much fun we had with that back in the day?
Of course.
So that's my wish for it. And seeing how it played out in this D&AD room, I want our creatives, and our agency leaders and strategists and everyone to know that it was AI that helped us stay accountable for the work, or it was AI that really helped us understand, in some ways, the deep research around.
A very unbiased
very
eye there,
unbiased,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. What is the history of the creator? So when, and in a jury room, you're judging work where you don't understand the language. There was no one from Latin America in that room. When you don't understand the language, it doesn't, it's not a disadvantage. That's why we talk about disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
It's very real. These things happen. But now with AI, it allows you to look at things differently. Maybe award shows will start to introduce, an AI-powered index or empathy index. Because AI can do some of these readings behind the scenes and tell us a little bit more about how something landed. And of course, brands can't fake it anymore, right? Like, it's got to be, the work's got to be real. It's
They
looked
really
at.
can't.
They really can't.
You did mention a little bit about anxiety, and some of the speakers that I heard yesterday in Cannes do mention, and there's some big stats about Gen Z now. They're going to become a lot more senior in their jobs.
Yeah.
They are becoming now decision makers, buyers. But the ones that unfortunately, haven't had that opportunity are really anxious. And it's great that, your take and how you're going to move forward is going to protect these minds. You're going to bring, fun back into the work.
Best of our ability.
So, yes, to the best of our ability. So, what would you say to them then? It's like, so that they stop being so anxious, about what kind of job they're going to get into in our space, right? In like creative agency, brand management. What would be your message to them?
I think maybe two things. One's a little bit practical, just to balance it out. One's a little bit practical and one's a little meta. Meta, pun intended. Thought, oh gosh, will meta exist in 10 years? Different conversation, coming back. So curiosity, I think curiosity, it was important back then. It's important now. The thing to be curious about is AI. They have an aptitude for it, right? When you're younger, you've got an aptitude for it. Don't buy into the fear mongering and the articles. Stop reading maybe, some of the publications. Just have some fun with it. Create music, write things. Let it roast you. Roastbrief, right? Let AI roast you, and it's gonna give you some truth. But just play with it so that you can bring your unique point of view and your uniqueness, and let AI do the work and the creation. And some of it will, the ability of AI to really, for example, do production and bring things to life is fairly limited now. It'll only get better. But if you start experimenting with it sooner, you're able to mold it and twist it in ways that most people can understand. So I would say, take that childlike curiosity, bring it with you to AI, because this is your industry. It's yours to, it's yours to have, yours to win, and you're only going to win if you start to bring your curiosity, into the changes that are happening in technology and not fear it. So I guess that would be one message.
That's sound advice. Yeah,
that would be, message. And then the other thing I would say, and maybe it's a reflection of what I've gone through over the last few years, is, what I say is I've gone through a period of self-work, but the self-work has just gone through a period where I've started to have more awareness and observe more my feelings. So fear and anxiety can be felt for anyone at any age, at any stage of their career. And sometimes you need to just take a step back and think about, why am I feeling this way? If you're not in a good place, if you feel like you're coming up against a wall, you need to look within and say, where is this coming from? And it can happen to anyone at any age, right? But this ability to look within, there are different tools to do it. Sometimes it's your mentors that you have around you, people, having people within the organization you can
Of
talk to.
course.
Sometimes it's your parents, sometimes it's a therapist, right? Sometimes it is
All of them.
all of them, being able to talk about things. For me, it was something called human design. So
Tell us about it.
so
Yeah.
human design is something I, came across. Someone I met through a client called Lucia. Had a lovely call with her. At the end of the call, she asked me, "Hey, can I ask you a personal question? Have you heard of human design?" And I'd heard about human design because I love Myers-Briggs, Tilt, all of these, 16 personality type quizzes. Because as a leader, you need to always understand yourself and be aware of yourself so you can be adaptable. But human design, I'd heard about it, I'd done a little bit, but I didn't know about it deeply. When she asked me the question, "Tell me your human design," and I realized how little I knew it, it sort of took me on this exploration where human design is a combination of I Ching, which is Chinese, a Chinese system, Kabbalah, which is a Jewish system, and Indian Vedic astronomy. And it brings those systems together, and the premise is that we're all coded at birth. I didn't really, I never really spent too much time thinking about it. I wasn't sure if I believed it, didn't believe it, but I'm always open-minded.
Yes,
In fact, my
yes.
design says I have an open mind,
Is it?
So it is. I've always been open-minded. So as I explored it further, you put in your date of birth, you put in your time of birth, and it says that, based on where the planets were, that's what astrology is. You have a certain design. There are parts, centers in your body that are closed, that are open. So as a leader, you want to be aware of the centers that are open because you can get conditioned. And you know that when you're conditioned and have something that is not yourself, you're not operating in your true potential, in your true capacity. Basically, a tool to understand yourself better. It's very complicated. I've been looking at it for the last year and a half. I've met 136 people. I've looked at the human design just as a wake. I'm a strategist, I'm a pattern seeker and pattern maker.
Of course.
Because when I see someone else's design and I see something about them, it makes me question something about myself. So just a tool, just a way to get to know yourself better. But I think if more people spend time doing that, which I think our younger generation, are the Gen Z, are more attuned to doing than we were at their age, perhaps. I don't know.
Yes.
But because
They're
of
definitely
COVID,
more in touch with their feelings.
more in touch with their feelings, because COVID was such a shocking experience. And I think in some ways that changed collective consciousness of humanity. So maybe after that as well, I see more people wanting to seek and understand what is within. I have found that to be a deeply helpful exercise, and understanding within, I've been able to control more of what is without on the outside.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I think these, I'm Gen X, so I've got.
What Gen X?
It's like this tough skin, like, you shouldn't really be phased by anything and just get on with it. That persona is we're gonna be seeing less of that because of what you just spoke about.
And I'm in the middle of this, the Gen X and the Gen Z. And I look at Gen X and I think, wow, the stamina, the resilience, the consistency to just keep going. And I don't think the younger generation have that, and they don't need to. Because for them, it's not, I don't think it's about that consistency and stamina. It's about the ability to be in flow state, and that comes from understanding what you are and taking childlike, discovery for everything.
There'd be a lot of working smarter, that's for sure, with the technology that we have access to, right? Whereas before, it was the grafting, it was learning, it was making a ton of mistakes. But I think now it's becoming a little bit harder to make the mistakes because you have so many guardrails, or AI in particular, giving you ideas that's already learned from text.
I'll tell you something, silly with, AI. It's just a small, small example of how sometimes, no matter what you've achieved, where you've gotten to, some basic things just escape you. So when I was looking at, my human design, there's something in there called nodal polarity, which is something we call the midlife crisis. But it was talking about something that I focused on the first part of my life versus what I should focus on second part of my life. And the word that came up for the second part of life was self-care. I remember not self-care, it was caring. It was just caring. It took me some time to realize it was about self-care. But I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I do that enough? And well, how does that show up at work? And I found myself chatting with AI to try and unravel that a little bit. And it was so good with here are some practical advice, your practical tips, and sort of looked at a few emails I was sending and say, perhaps you want to rephrase it like that, right? Like I'd love to help with this right now, but I just can't take it on at the moment, and silly things like that. And just such a basic example. But you talked about how AI and technology can also be helpful on this journey. So I've found quite a few people tapping into AI, asked to roast me, but more than that, can you give me some practical tips and advice on how to do this? You've got the help around you, to be able to explore that. Yeah.
But going back to human design, for people that are interested, how accessible is it? Is it something that you need to seek special guidance from, or is it an app, or how?
It's a good question. I'd say, if you just Google human design, I think there are various websites and tools and calculators where you put in your birthday and I'll give you some information. You need to have your precise time of birth. I'm Indian. So in India, that has always been a part of our culture where your time of birth and time of death is always recorded. It's very important. So I've always, had that information. It's important to have that. So you go and have a look at the information. I'd say maybe it speaks to you, maybe it doesn't. For some people, you might look at that and something resonates with you and you want to go deeper. The apps will give you a lot of information. If you want to go deeper, everything is a Google search away. There are these Reddit sub-communities that talk about, different human design profiles. People are asking questions. It's also interesting to see different people exploring human design. AI can help you, uncover some of it. But if you want to go deeper, I think it's always good to speak to a practitioner or a coach that practices this, and then those, can be found as well. So if you want to take this to like we did, we took it to our leaders. We had our leaders look at the human design just as a way to inspire, just as a way to see if there was something they discovered that brought more awareness of themselves so that they can show up better at a time that is a difficult time for our industry. So, it's important to build that resilience within. So it depends on how far you want to go, but there are various methods and everything's a Google away.
What a great exercise! I can't wait to do it with some executives, and close friends and family. It feels that it's for everyone.
Exactly. I did one with my husband, and it showed us the areas in a relationship where he dominates versus I dominate, where I have to compromise versus he compromises. Man, I'm telling you, that stuff is not vague and made up. Like it was true. I just looked at him like, right, then, okay, fine. I'm not going to nag on that anymore.
It's like a mathematical output right at the end. Now, speaking about outputs, it's Thursday, which means that Cannes is starting to conclude. It's starting to build a narrative. And last year we talked about let's get it back on track. Let's be real. Let's bring our clients results, and let's do it with humor. What do you think the narrative is going to be like this year? Can you hear something crafting in the background, or isn't there going to be one? Is it going to be inconclusive? Will it be more exploratory? What are your thoughts on it?
So I think so much. This is the Cannes that is at a crossroad, right? Our industry seems to be at this crossroad. So much of this Cannes is about AI. AI is one of the key conversations. I'd love to know your views on this as well and what you've been hearing. But while a lot of the conversation has been about AI and perhaps, like we mentioned, ethics in AI, whether AI is going to affect our industry or not, how it should. On one hand, you've got people talking about products. On the other hand, you've got people talking about the ethics and that, the workforce shouldn't change. But it is happening. Both of those things are happening. But I haven't seen AI in the work. So in the work, that is one. So while there's all of this conversation about AI, it hasn't really come into the work. It hasn't really defined. We're not having a conversation about how award shows will look different because of AI. We're not having a conversation around next year for social and influencer when your influencer is AI. What do we feel about that? Are we going to award that, not award that? How are we going to award it? How do we think about it? There's no conversation around how much AI can be used in the work or won't be used in the work. Will there be a new category? So I'm not seeing it in the work yet, and maybe because it's too early. It most definitely will look different next year. So then the conversation needs to progress beyond AI to something else. And I think that if there's one thing that we should try and go towards is, I'm going to say, it's an old word, but for the lack of a better word, like empathy for us as an industry, for each other, empathy between brand and the consumer, and empathy for the change that is happening, and empathy for ourselves, to evolve through this. So I think that AI or not AI, maybe next year the work can be about, we now have the tools at our disposal and the intent to really create work that touches another human being. Are we standing up to it? Are we staying true to it? And influencers and creators are a path to doing it, because it's not about institutions anymore, it's about the individuals and the collectives and us working together. So may that be a model for our industry moving forward.
Lovely statement. Thank you, AK.
Welcome.
Yeah, my thoughts on it, and you mentioned it. It is just, looking at the ethics behind it, and just, making sure that we are empowering people and not disenfranchising them. So I'm with you on that. I know that you and I have, mixed feelings on it, but it feels like then the conclusion should be, let's embrace it, and let's bring it into the event next year.
Yes.
Right, this should be the natural route, and something that's wrapped around that.
And I think one of the ways to doing that is bold thought, maybe unpopular opinion, and perhaps I might change my mind on this. So all of the disclaimers. But DNAD, when recently, because I was judging that just 2 months ago, so it's fresh, in my entrance needed to specify when AI was used in the work. I don't think we should have any such thing. Like, it's not, it's like, did you utilize the internet, in the work? No, yes. So I don't think we should be qualifying that. I don't think we should be creating separate categories. I think we just embrace it. And embracing it means that knowing it's business as usual.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been lovely to have you on Roastbrief.
Thank you.
Can't wait to speak to you again. And make sure that you follow AK. I'm sure you have a LinkedIn handle.
Yes. And I can be found on Instagram, Akanksha Goel, which is AKANKSHAGOEL, quite a big name, and LinkedIn. But I need to take off the limits on my LinkedIn. People need to put in email addresses and such. I'm going to change it.
Yes, awesome. Lovely to have you. Thank you, AK.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Pastry time.